Welcome to part 4 of the American Revolution. Now we're going to take a look behind the Declaration of Independence. All right, so let's take a closer look, especially at this preamble to the Declaration of Independence, because there is really a lot to unpack here, right? The preamble states that we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That one sentence has a ton of meaning to it. It all derives itself from the political theories of John Locke and also some Rousseau and Thomas Hobbes into what we call social compact theory or social contract theory. That's correct as well. So let's pick this apart a little bit here. Let's start with all men are created equal, right? And in that we are discussing human equality. Okay, so what did they mean by equality? Now I know some of you right away are going, oh, okay, well, remember this was written by Thomas Jefferson. He owned slaves, so when he's talking about equality, he's talking about just, equality for white men. No, actually, he's not. He's actually talking about human equality. Thomas Jefferson is a very dynamic and confusing person, and I'm going to be perfectly honest. The more I know about Thomas Jefferson, the less I like him because he contradicts himself in so many ways. For example, he hates slavery, right? But he's a slave owner, right? He always had an issue with slavery, but his issue with slavery was the effect it had on the slave owner, not the slaves, right? He once described slavery like holding a wolf by the ears, right? You don't want to hold on to it, but you don't dare let it go, okay? He felt that Africans were inferior, and yet he had 6 children with one, right? So, I mean, he's a really complex individual, and he really does contradict himself a lot, right? Now, when he's talking about this, all men are created equal, he's talking about human equality, right? There's a distinction among species in nature, but there's no set distinction among different human beings, right? We are all born in the same state of equality. Not all animals in the animal kingdom have that. Not all animals are equal by birth. I'll give you a great example. Bees, right? Bees are not equal by birth, right? You don't get born a drone bee and say, someday if I work really hard, I can be the queen. That doesn't happen, okay? So, since all humans are born equal by nature, right, then we have a right to self-dominion by nature, right? We have a right to govern ourselves. Now, Jefferson is going to reiterate this view to Roger Waitman on the eve of the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, right? He had been invited to a party to celebrate the 50th anniversary to the Declaration, in which he wrote a letter in which he was politely declining because he was busy that day. Matter of fact, he's going to be busy dying. One of the strange ironies of American history is that on the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, 2 of its authors, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, died on the 50th anniversary. Okay, so in this letter politely declining the invitation to Roger Waitman, he reiterates this idea of human equality when he says, the general spread of the light of science has already laid open to every view the palpable truth that the mass of mankind has not been born with saddles on their back, nor a favored few booted and spurred ready to ride them legitimately by the grace of God. These are the grounds of hope for others. For ourselves, let the annual return of this day forever refresh our recollections of these rights and an undiminished devotion to them. That's a powerful statement describing human equality, right? I know it's kind of strange that it actually comes from Thomas Jefferson, who didn't, in his personal actions, treat everyone like they were equal, but in these philosophical actions, he's stating that they are. Okay, so human equality. All men are created equal because we are born in a state of nature equally. Okay, so because of that, then we have granted to us by our Creator certain unalienable rights, right? Here's another little piece of this we're going to tear apart now. Natural rights, okay? We are all born in a state of, we're equal by nature, and so therefore we are all equally free, and so therefore we all have certain rights that are inalienable. We possess them by nature, okay? And we list them out. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Now, life and liberty is pretty self-evident, okay? Life, right? We have a right to live. We have a right to be free, to have liberty. Pursuit of happiness, that one's a little bit more nebulous. In the original rough draft, Jefferson had wrote life, liberty, and property, which runs right in line with John Locke's theories. They changed that. This really upset him. But yeah, they changed it to pursuit of happiness. Well, why did they do that? Well, they felt that property might be misconstrued, right? Property, they could think maybe just land, things like that. And they said, we need to make sure that we capture this completely, right? Pursuit of happiness. What this boils down to is our natural right to our labor. You own your own labor. That is one thing that we all own. That's something we don't think about very often, right? But you do. You own your own labor. Think about it. If you're working right now, really take a minute and think about what you're doing here. You went to your now employer and you made an agreement. I will give you my labor in exchange for the money that you pay me, right? You sold your labor for that money. You may not be happy with the amount of money that you're getting for it, but that's what you did. Okay, and so therefore you have the right to enjoy the fruits of your labor, right? Be it property, property being land, possessions, PlayStation, whatever. Okay, you have the right to enjoy the fruits of your labor or your pursuit of happiness. See, that's what broadens that out. All right, so we have this inalienable natural rights, right? But these natural rights are limited. They're limited by the natural law. Now, the idea of the natural law is that there are things that are right and wrong by nature, okay? And so therefore, basically the natural law, if you are doing something that is infringing upon the natural rights of someone else, you are stepping outside the boundaries of the natural law. So natural rights doesn't just mean you can do whatever you want. That's why, like I said before, you can't walk through an airport carrying 2 bags going, boy, these bombs are heavy. The First Amendment doesn't protect that. Right? Because in doing so, you've endangered others, and in doing that, you have violated their natural rights, right? That you violated the natural law. Okay? Now, according to Lockean theory, then this social compact means that you can exist in a society without government, right? If everybody understands the natural rights and obeys the natural law. And this is why societies don't break down into complete anarchy if they do not have government, right? However, because we have the natural law, and because not everybody follows the natural law, because part of the requirement of the natural law is to respect the natural rights of others, it means that we have a natural executive power to protect our natural rights. And what we do is we give that power up. We bestow that power onto a second tier, a second social compact called government, right? And the responsibility of the government then is to protect the natural rights, enforce the natural law, okay? And so they have the authority. And what that really means when we get down to it is that the power of the government then comes from those who are governed. Power by the consent of the governed with the responsibility of protecting natural rights. And that is the entire purpose of a government based on natural rights and natural law. And so that's why we see this part of the preamble. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, right? And this is a step away from how government works in England, right? In England, you have a monarch, and the monarch is, the king is king because God made him king, right? And so he has power from the consent of God. But they're saying, no, if under the idea of natural rights and natural law, the power of that government, that second social contract, comes from the people, the consent of the government. And therefore, whenever any form of government becomes destructive to those ends, are no longer protecting the natural rights of others and upholding the natural law, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute a new government, right? And so that is the entire basis of this new nation that's being proposed by these men that are authoring and signing the Declaration of Independence. So the Declaration of Independence is really very important because it provided a philosophical justification for rebellion for all people everywhere, right? For those that feel like they're being oppressed by their second social contract, right? It gave a voice to that idea of American nationalism and justified the creation of a nation, a new nation, based on natural rights. And this is the one thing that had not been done before. We have examples in history of republics and even democracies, but never before have we decided to, or tried to create one based on the idea of natural rights and natural law.